Yo, what up, everybody? My name is Drake Demore from the Win City Sports Podcast, and this episode of Cedric Ben's Combat Quarter is brought to you by the Win City Sports Podcast. Check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere podcasts are found, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or directly on wincitysports.com. Smell you later.
What up? Back again, Combat Corner number 8. This week's focus is on the UFC. The stand-up part specifically. I don't know too much about the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling, so I'm going to focus on the boxing part. The 3 main events look like 3 boxing matches. So it's 3 good boxing matches in the UFC. Starting first, and the main thing, I'm going to get into detail in each of the main fights, but the main thing that I got away from it was accuracy and head movement. Those are the main things that I'll be focusing on when I'm breaking down these fights right now. Starting first with Diaz and Pettis. Congratulations to Nate Diaz, UFC veteran, with another big win. His main thing is relentless pressure. Like, his main skill is like relentless nonstop pressure, not necessarily KO power, but just his relentless nonstop pressure and just consistent. What I got from Pettis, he has good skills, but I think he should work a little bit on his boxing skills. Specifically, with him, it was the accuracy, because at the end of the match, Diaz's face was definitely marked up more than Pettis's was. So I think if Pettis, if he landed more accurate, like to the chin, not necessarily just to the cheek or to the forehead, to the nose and all that, where you see the cuts and bruises, but specifically on the chin, or specifically some specific body shots, even if they're not knockout punches, but strong enough just to slow the person down. Someone that has great cardio like that. Like, I heard Diaz, those guys, with, I don't know how many times they've done it, but like swim back and forth to Alcatraz, which is I don't know how many miles, but that alone is crazy. So they're, they run marathons and they do triathlons and stuff like that. So their cardio is on another level. So to deal with a fighter that has that level of cardio, to slow them down, to slow that pressure down, it can't just be throwing punches to match what they're doing. They're used to that pace. If you're not, even if your cardio is up, because Pettis, he didn't look like he was getting tired, like didn't look like he was getting tired, like he was getting fatigued. It just looked like the relentless pressure was just overwhelming him. And so I believe if his punches were just a little bit more accurate, because he was landing, obviously, look at Diaz's face after the fight. He was definitely marked up. But if those punches were just a little bit more accurate, so if he just worked on just on his boxing skills in general, I think it would definitely help him in his next match. I don't know what's next for Diaz, but yeah, man, just keep it. Whatever you're doing for that cardio, keep that up. Yeah, maybe just tighten up that defense just a little bit. As you're throwing, and you gotta have the same type of reflexes to be able to have a little bit of a head movement to get out of the way of those punches too. Yeah, don't forget about your life after fighting. Next up in the co-main event, we had Romero versus Costa. Another good boxing match between these two guys. Yeah, there was a few takedowns, but I think 80% of it was standing up. And it could have went either way. I could definitely see how some people had it for Costa. I personally thought Romero did enough to pull it out at the end. But I could definitely see how some people had it for Costa. If you're one of the people that really was judging it based off, Costa's extra aggressiveness coming forward and throwing harder, then that's the way you saw it. But I think the difference was, even though Costa was definitely the aggressor, there's a difference between throwing hard and actually landing them. I think a lot of those punches were being blocked or slipped by Romero, and much credit to Romero for the head movement. One of one of the common things that I hear a lot in the MMA world is a lot of people say that you should never duck under because someone will just fake it and you'll get hit with a knee or a kick. I even heard George St. Pierre's coach, I forgot his name, but George St. Pierre's coach, he was on Joe Rogan a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about he tells guys never to duck under. He's like, if a guy ducks under, I'll just fake and throw a kick. And I said, yeah, that's true. If you only go between two defenses, like if all you do is block and duck under, block it, anytime a punch comes at you, your only two reactions is block or just duck your head, block, duck your head. Of course, there's going to be a 50% chance someone could just fake and throw an uppercut or a kick or a knee and catch you. But if you mix it up between, like if you go between blocks, one time block, the next time slip, the next time catch, the next time step to the side, and then the next time duck under, that's 5 different defenses right there. Block, slip, catch, move, duck under, and mix up those ones. If the person's not going to know in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a battle, then no one's going to be counting how many times you do that pattern. So mixing it up in that way, I think you could you could mix in the head movement. And Romero, he did a very good job of that. It's probably I would say a good 4 or 5 times where he ducked under. And when you duck under, it's you're not bending your head all the way down to the waist. It's just a quick, as close as the punch is coming to you, just getting barely underneath it using your legs, especially if you're fast enough to counterpunch off of that. That was the only thing. When Costa was dominating the first round and midway through the second, or maybe not dominating, but he was, like I said, he was definitely the aggressor. Even though Romero was blocking and slipping and doing a good job of ducking under some of those, he wasn't throwing anything back to make Costa stop with that extra aggressiveness. What he did start to adjust, what I saw, again, this is all, I'm just commentating on the stand-up part. Halfway through the fight is when Romero started to slowly, I thought he started to slowly take over by being more accurate, because when he did explode forward, he was accurate and powerful. Because once again, even though Costa won the fight, his face looked more damaged at the end, and it was from Romero's accuracy and the power from when he would explode forward. But it's hard, it's hard to say someone is taking more in control, or hard to see that when the person is still backing up. That was Romero's problem. Even though he was being more aggressive and more accurate and throwing just as hard as Costa was, but more accurately, it was hard to see that, I guess, to the untrained person, because they just see him backing up the whole time. And he didn't do any help for himself when he's, when you're just standing there with your back against the fence, sticking your tongue out. I wasn't a big fan of that. That is nothing. That's doing nothing for you to in the judge's favor to help you, to give you that round. Even in the middle of that, he was doing a good job of defending and slipping and ducking under once in a while. He wasn't throwing nothing back in that first half, in that first round, in maybe the first 2 rounds. Then he slowly started to climb his way through. And I think that was the difference. So that's why I thought Romero pulled it out. But again, I could definitely see how some people had Costa winning. And those guys are some big dudes at that weight class too, man. And then moving on to the main event, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. Congrats to the new champ, Stipe, the most accomplished heavyweight champion in UFC history. Cormier, in his post-fight interviews, was saying after the fight that he simply didn't follow his coach's game plan. And I'm going to get into that specifically after I get into the breakdown of the actual match. That coaching, that's a special thing between the coach and the fighter. Understanding the game plan and trusting the coach, or trusting the athlete if they decide to switch it up. Anyways, we'll get into that in a bit. So this match was also mostly a stand-up match. It was a couple of big takedowns. It was either the first or the second round where DC picked him up and held him up there WWE style for like 10 seconds and then slammed him down. Stipe, what I thought he could have done better is use that reach advantage. He had 5 inches. He was 5 inches taller and had an 8-inch reach against the champion Daniel Cormier. And this is a perfect example of, a lot of people think just because someone's taller, that automatically means they have an advantage because of their reach. But that is only an advantage if you know how to use that reach. And a lot of tall guys don't exactly know how to use that reach. And so Stipe, again, great champion. He'd be even greater if he just worked on those skills a little bit more head movement and just a little bit more being able to use his reach. If he would have been able to keep DC off him a little bit more, it would have been a lot different story earlier. One of the reasons why Daniel Cormier was so confident in just, blatantly and disrespectfully walking forward like that is because Stipe wasn't doing anything to make him hesitate to not do that, and which is crazy with 4-ounce gloves on, taking those chances. But still, that's one of the most like funny, disrespectful things that a fighter can do to their opponent. If someone just literally you're backing up, trying to get some space, thinking of your next move, and your opponent is just blatantly walking at you, not even in their fighter stance, just walking at you with their hands down, showing that there's absolutely nothing that you have to offer that they are worried about. That's what Cormier was doing. So Stipe, if you just worked on using that reach, keeping that shoulder, that he's orthodox, right? Yeah, keeping that left foot and left shoulder just a little bit more forward to use them long straight punches. I know for the kicks you want to be a little bit more square so you can land them and block a little bit better. But specifically, if you're facing someone that's shorter than you, to take advantage of your reach, to keep that, if you're orthodox, whatever foot, or southpaw, whatever foot you got forward, keep that shoulder forward so that your jab hand is going to reach them better. Push off your back leg and let them walk into some straight punches as they try to walk through. If they're going to get to you, they should have to walk through the fire to get to you. Now, the adjustment that Stipe made was going down to the body, specifically with that left hook. And I know he was doing it on purpose. It wasn't just like random throwing random punches and just so happened that it was landing, because he was doing it a lot, like during the third and fourth, especially in the fourth round, but even halfway in the third, he was purposely landing that left hook to the body and trying to fake it and come up top with it. He wasn't landing the top one, or if he did, it was just barely missing or glancing him, but he did. Stipe was definitely making an effort to come downstairs. And for the most part, DC was doing a good job of blocking. Or even if he did get hit, he wasn't showing any signs that it was hurting him, even the punches that he was taking to the head. And so I think that's what gave him even more confidence to just walk forward like that, not even in a stance, which is very dangerous. And so Stipe just caught him at that perfect timing. DC was in the middle of walking forward with his arms extended. So it's one thing to take a body shot when you know it's coming and you brace for it. So not only was he not braced for it, but his arms were like extended or slightly extended out because he was just trying to reach for Stipe's arms, and Stipe just sat down and dug that uppercut to the body. And that split second, even if you sparred, even if you just sparred before and got a nice body shot, that couple of seconds that you're it's not even a hurt that you have to go down to a knee, but just that couple of seconds that you're winded distracts you from anything else that you get hit with. So Stipe sat down, came with a nice uppercut to the body. So for a couple of seconds, DC, his brain was focused on recovering from that body shot, and Stipe just came up top with just a regular 1-2 pop. It wasn't even that hard. It wasn't that hard, and because nobody knew DC was hurt until you saw his reaction, the way he wobbled after. Because it's not like, sometimes you see a fight and the commentators will say, make a big loud noise like, oh, whether it was a kick or a big punch, but there was no reaction from the fighter. That body shot and that 1-2, there was no reaction. Like, it was nothing, but nobody knew that he was hurt until you saw him wobble over. And then it was just all over from there. So congrats again to the champ, Stipe. Great body shot and great finish. So what I want to finish off with, just the coaching tip of the week. Not just a coaching tip, just coaching observation, I would say. DC, in his post-fight interview, in a few of them, he was saying, he put the blame on himself and said that he was disappointed that he disappointed his coaches because he didn't follow the game plan. And so one thing I always tell my boxers, like, if we, when we go into a match, especially if we know the opponent and we have a specific game plan for that opponent that we've been working on, if you go in there and follow the game plan and lose, you can blame me. You can tell people, if someone asks you what happened, you can tell people, well, my coach wanted me to do this, and so I just followed what he said, and that's why I lost. But if you go in there and you don't follow the game plan because you think whatever you're doing is going to work better than what we worked on, and you lose, you better make sure that people know that it's clear that this was your idea, not my idea, because that looks bad on the coach too. If you're as the fighter going there and get beat up, and people are asking you questions of what happened, and you just stand there and be like, well, I'm not sure what happened, we're gonna go back and go back to the drawing board, and like, no, that's not gonna work. You tell them exactly what happened. Again, if it was me, if I told you to do that and it didn't work, then yeah, put it on me. You say my coach, it's my coach's fault. I followed his instructions. He's the one that told me to do this. But if I told you to do something and you do something else and it doesn't work out, you need to make sure that's clear, because that will look bad on the coach. So that's my coaching advice for the week for coaches and athletes. Own it. If you make a mistake, own it. Don't look to blame somebody else. All right? If you have any questions or anything specific you want me to break down, you can email me at cedricbenn@gmail, CEDRICBENN@gmail, or hit me up on all social medias at Cedric Sports. Cedric Sports, CEDRIC Sports. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all that. Yeah, peace.